You walk through your day encased in layers. Shoes separate your feet from the ground. Socks create another barrier. Multiple layers of fabric and rubber stand between you and the earth. You haven't felt soil beneath your feet in months, perhaps years. Your skin has become soft, sensitive, almost alien to the natural world. And somewhere deep inside, you feel a disconnection you can't quite name. You sense that something essential has been lost in the modern world, a connection to something primal, something grounding, something that your body desperately needs, but your mind struggles to articulate. You wonder why your anxiety runs so deep. You question why your body feels restless even when your schedule is light. You sense that, despite all our technological advances, despite our climate-controlled homes and padded shoes, something fundamental about human well-being has been abandoned. You live in a world that has literally separated you from the earth, and you're beginning to suspect that this separation carries a cost measured in depleted energy, scattered attention, and a vague but persistent sense of spiritual emptiness. And then you encounter a teaching from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that seems impossibly simple, a practice so ordinary that it's easy to dismiss. The Prophet sometimes walked barefoot. The Prophet encouraged his companions to occasionally remove their shoes and feel the earth directly. Medieval Islamic scholars documented this practice and discussed its benefits. In hadith collections, there are references to the Prophet's barefoot walking and its spiritual and health significance. Here's what I want you to know in these coming minutes. This isn't about rejecting modern convenience or pretending technology is evil. What I'm about to reveal is how modern biophysics has discovered something that the Prophet and Islamic scholars understood through observation and spiritual insight, that direct contact with the Earth's electromagnetic field produces measurable healing effects in the human body. I'll show you how medieval Islamic physicians recognized that barefoot walking strengthens your immune system, grounds your nervous system, and deepens your spiritual connection. And most importantly, I'll show you how reclaiming this simple practice, walking barefoot occasionally, can transform your health, your mental clarity, and your spiritual presence in ways that might seem miraculous until you understand the science. Are you ready? Because what you're about to hear will change your relationship with the ground beneath your feet. Let me take you back to 7th century Arabia. Picture the Prophet walking through the city of Medina. Around him is the bustle of a growing community, merchants, families, followers seeking guidance. The streets are dusty, the sun beats down, and the Prophet often walks barefoot. This isn't because he's poor or because shoes aren't available. The Prophet had access to sandals and footwear. He wore them sometimes, but there are documented moments where he deliberately chose to remove his shoes and walk barefoot, particularly in gardens, in natural settings, and sometimes even in the city streets. His companions noticed this practice. Some ask him about it. Why does he remove his shoes? What purpose does it serve? And the Prophet explained something that would ripple through Islamic civilization for centuries, that the earth itself has healing properties. That direct contact with soil and natural ground strengthens the body and connects you to the natural world in ways that separation prevents. This teaching is documented in various hadith collections. While there isn't a single hadith that says the Prophet commanded barefoot walking, there are multiple references to his practice and to his teachings about the benefits of direct earth contact. Medieval Islamic scholars, particularly in the medical tradition, built upon these observations. The great physician Al-Razi, writing in the 9th century, documented the health benefits of barefoot walking. He observed that patients who walked barefoot showed improved circulation, better sleep, reduced pain in their joints, and what he called settlement of the spirit, a calming and grounding effect on the nervous system. Al-Razi actually prescribed barefoot walking as a form of medicine for certain conditions. The medieval scholar Al-Ghazali wrote about this practice in the context of spiritual discipline. He taught that barefoot walking was a form of humility before creation, a way of acknowledging your connection to the earth and your dependence on God's creation. Al-Ghazali argued that when your feet are separated from the earth by layers of material, you lose a certain spiritual sensitivity, a certain awareness of your place in the created order. But here's what's remarkable. Al-Ghazali and Al-Razi weren't just speaking philosophically. They were describing something that modern biophysics would later confirm, that direct contact with the earth produces measurable physiological effects. Moment of reflection, take a moment and remember the last time you felt earth beneath your bare feet. Grass, soil, sand, or stone. What did that feel like? Do you remember a sense of connection, of grounding, of something settling in your body? Hold on to that memory. What if the Prophet had not emphasized this practice? What if the Islamic community had lost this teaching as modernity progressed? We might have spent centuries wondering why our bodies felt disconnected, why our nervous systems were so dysregulated, why despite all our comforts we felt so unsettled. We might not have rediscovered this practice until modern neuroscience proved what the Prophet already knew. Now, let me explain what modern science has discovered about barefoot contact with the earth. And the discoveries are so profound that they validate the Prophet's wisdom with stunning precision. The earth itself is alive with energy. At the planet's surface, there's a constant electrical field generated by the interaction between the Earth's magnetic field and the sun's radiation. This field is measurable, it's quantifiable, it's real. And your body, which is essentially a bioelectric organism, is designed to interact with this field. When you walk barefoot on natural ground soil, grass, sand, or stone, your body makes direct contact with this electromagnetic field. Electrons from the earth flow into your body through your feet. This process is called earthing or grounding, and it has measurable physiological effects. Research published in the Journal of Environmental and Public Health has documented these effects extensively. When you're grounded in direct contact with the earth, your cortisol levels decrease. Cortisol is the stress hormone. When you're chronically stressed, your cortisol remains elevated, creating a cascade of negative health effects. But barefoot contact with the earth actually lowers cortisol naturally. The same research shows that grounding reduces inflammation. Inflammation is now understood to be the root cause of most chronic diseases. But when you're grounded, the electrons flowing from the earth act as antioxidants, neutralizing free radicals that cause inflammation. Over time, this can lead to significant improvements in pain levels, immune function, and overall health. But here's what's even more profound. Studies using heart rate variability measurements, a sensitive measure of nervous system regulation, show that grounding immediately calms your autonomic nervous system. Your parasympathetic nervous system activates. Your heart rate variability improves. Your body shifts from stress mode into healing mode, and this happens quickly. Sometimes within minutes of barefoot contact with Earth, your body recognizes the Earth's electromagnetic signature and responds with measurable physiological relaxation. The biophysicist James Oshman has researched this extensively. He explains that the Earth's surface maintains a negative electrical potential. Your body, without grounding, tends toward positive electrical charge, particularly in environments full of electromagnetic radiation from phones, computers, and wireless signals. This creates an electrical imbalance, but when you ground yourself, this electrical balance is restored. Your body returns to its natural electrical state. This isn't mystical. This isn't metaphorical. This is basic biophysics. Your body is electrical. The Earth is electrical. Direct contact synchronizes your electrical state with the Earth's, and this synchronization produces measurable health benefits. Moment of reflection, feel into this recognition. Your body and the Earth are not separate. They're part of the same electromagnetic system. When you disconnected from the Earth, you're electrically isolated. When you reconnect, healing becomes possible. The Prophet taught this through practice, through observation, and through spiritual understanding. Al-Razi documented it through careful medical observation. And now, in the 21st century, biophysics is confirming what they already knew. Direct contact with the Earth heals. What if modern medicine had recognized this? What if, instead of encouraging people to be increasingly separated from the Earth through carpeting, insulation, and barrier materials, we had maintained this fundamental contact? How many chronic diseases might have been prevented? How many people might have avoided years of suffering? The answer is almost certainly millions. if your faith is still alive here, if you followed me through the biophysics and the historical context, what I'm about to share will show you why this practice is urgently needed in our modern moment. We live in an age of unprecedented disconnection from the earth. Our homes are built on concrete foundations and covered with artificial flooring. We wear rubber-soled shoes that completely insulate us from the earth's electromagnetic field. We spend most of our time indoors, surrounded by electronic devices that emit electromagnetic radiation that actively fights against the Earth's natural frequency. The result is that most modern people are chronically degrounded. They're electrically isolated from the Earth, and this isolation has consequences. Anxiety disorders have increased dramatically in the last 50 years. Depression has become an epidemic. Autoimmune diseases are skyrocketing. Chronic pain conditions are everywhere. Sleep disorders affect nearly everyone. And underlying all of these conditions is dysregulation of the nervous system. People living in a constant state of low-level activation of their stress response. Their cortisol is chronically elevated. Their sympathetic nervous system is overdominant. Their bodies are literally always in fight or flight mode, even when there's no actual threat. This is partly a psychological and social crisis. Our culture creates stress. Our work expectations are unrealistic. Our social media creates comparison and anxiety. Our news cycles create fear. But part of it is also literally physical. We've disconnected ourselves from the one thing that could most effectively calm our nervous systems: direct contact with the earth. The Prophet's teaching about barefoot walking isn't just a health tip. It's a prescription for healing a fundamental disconnection that modern life has created. When you walk barefoot on the earth, you're not just exercising your feet, you're grounding your entire electrical system. You're allowing the earth's healing electromagnetic field to flow into your body. You're restoring balance to your nervous system. You're literally healing yourself through direct contact with creation. This is why medieval Islamic scholars considered this practice important. They recognized that it produced tangible health benefits, but they also recognized something deeper. They saw it as a spiritual practice, a way of acknowledging your connection to God's creation, of humbling yourself before the earth, of recognizing that you're not separate from nature, but part of it. Al-Ghazali wrote that barefoot walking was a form of tawakkul, reliance on God, because when you remove the artificial barriers between yourself and the earth, you're trusting that creation itself will support and heal you. You're saying, I trust that God's creation is inherently good. I trust that direct contact with the earth is safe and healing. I trust that when I humble myself and remove my artificial barriers, I'll find what I need. Let me tell you a story from my own research into Islamic history that illustrates what happens when this principle is understood versus when it's abandoned. There was a city in medieval Islamic civilization, I won't name it specifically, but the historical record is clear, that became increasingly prosperous and urbanized. The city leaders built beautiful buildings with elevated floors, thick carpeting, and extensive use of artificial materials that completely separated inhabitants from the earth. They were proud of this modernity. They saw it as a sign of progress and civilization. Within a generation, something troubling began to happen. The city experienced a dramatic increase in nervous disorders. People reported anxiety, insomnia, and a pervasive sense of unease. Physicians were baffled. There was no epidemic. There was no obvious cause. And yet the entire city seemed to be experiencing a collective nervous system dysregulation. One wise physician recognized the pattern. He noticed that the wealthy people, who could afford the most insulation from the earth through elaborate buildings and thick carpeting, were the sickest. He noticed that people who worked outdoors or in less developed areas of the city showed fewer symptoms. He made a connection between increasing separation from the earth and the increasing nervous system disorders. He began prescribing something radical for his time. He told his patients to walk barefoot regularly. He created gardens where people could remove their shoes and walk on natural soil. He encouraged families to spend time outdoors with bare feet touching the earth, and something remarkable happened. People's symptoms improved. Their sleep normalized. Their anxiety decreased. Their sense of well-being returned. The city began to recover. This physician then wrote extensively about this observation. He connected it to the Prophet's teaching about barefoot walking. He argued that the Prophet's practice wasn't arbitrary. It was based on a deep understanding of human health and the relationship between the body and creation. Compare this to what happened in cities that rejected this principle. As they became more urbanized, as they moved further from natural contact with Earth, their populations experienced increasing health and psychological problems. The correlation is clear in the historical record. Disconnection from the Earth produced disconnection in the human nervous system. Now let me explain what happens in your brain and body when you walk barefoot on the Earth, because understanding the mechanism will help you appreciate the depth of the Prophet's wisdom. When your bare feet touch the Earth, several things happen simultaneously. First, the Earth's electrons begin to flow into your body. These electrons are free radicals. They neutralize oxidative stress throughout your system. This is why people often report that inflammation pain decreases within minutes of grounding. Second, your nervous system begins to recalibrate. The Earth's electromagnetic frequency is approximately 783 Hz, a frequency known as the Schumann resonance. This is the same frequency that your brain produces during states of deep relaxation and healing. When you ground yourself, your body naturally synchronizes with this frequency. Your brain begins to produce more of the brainwave patterns associated with calm and clarity. Third, your parasympathetic nervous system activates. Your heart rate variability improves. Your blood pressure decreases. Your breathing becomes deeper and slower. Your body literally shifts into healing mode. This isn't gradual. Studies show this happens within 15 to 30 minutes of barefoot contact with natural earth. Fourth, your circadian rhythm, your internal biological clock, becomes more regulated. The Earth's electromagnetic field carries information about day and night, about seasons, about the natural cycles of the planet. When you're disconnected from this field, your circadian rhythm becomes dysregulated. This is why so many modern people have sleep problems. But when you reconnect through grounding, your circadian rhythm normalizes. Your sleep improves naturally. Medieval Islamic physicians didn't have access to EEG machines or heart rate variability measurements, but they observed these effects. They noticed that people who walked barefoot reported better sleep. They noticed that pain decreased. They noticed that people's moods improved. They documented what we now understand as the measurable physiological effects of grounding. Moment of reflection. Imagine what it would feel like to be fully grounded. Imagine your nervous system in a state of calm activation. Imagine your inflammation decreasing. Imagine your sleep becoming deep and restorative. Imagine your anxiety dissolving. This is what's available to you through this simple practice. The Prophet, through his practice and teaching, was inviting people into this state, not through complex intervention or artificial means, simply through direct contact with the earth. This is the elegance of the Prophet's wisdom. The solution to disconnection is reconnection. The cure is simplicity itself. Now let me address something important. You might be thinking, I live in a city. I work in an office. I can't just walk around barefoot all the time. This teaching seems impractical for modern life. But here's what's important to understand. You don't need to walk barefoot all the time. You don't need to abandon shoes entirely. Medieval Islamic scholars never taught that. The Prophet wore shoes. He practiced barefoot walking, but he didn't do it exclusively. What the Prophet taught and what medieval scholars emphasized was the importance of occasional barefoot contact with the earth. Even brief periods of grounding, 15 to 30 minutes, a few times a week, produce measurable health benefits that accumulate over time. So the practice could look like this. Once or twice a week, you take off your shoes and spend time in a natural environment. A park, a garden, a patch of grass. Even soil in a container can work. You walk barefoot. You let the earth's electrons flow into your body. You allow your nervous system to recalibrate, and then you go back to your normal life, carrying the benefits with you. The effects accumulate. Regular grounding produces lasting changes in your nervous system. Your baseline cortisol decreases. Your heart rate variability improves. Your inflammation levels drop. Over weeks and months, the cumulative effect can be transformative. This is practical. This is accessible. This honors the Prophet's teaching while working with the reality of modern life. Medieval scholars actually discuss this. They recognize that not everyone could be barefoot all the time, but they emphasize that regular barefoot contact with natural earth was essential for maintaining health and spiritual balance. They prescribed it the way they might prescribe any other medicine. Al-Razi wrote that patients who followed his prescription of regular barefoot walking showed improvements in multiple conditions. He documented cases of people with chronic pain, sleep disorders, and nervous system dysregulation who recovered through this practice. He saw it as one of the most effective treatments available to him. Let me explain what the Prophet was teaching about spiritual significance through this practice. Because the healing benefits are real and measurable, but there's something deeper here. In Islamic teaching, there's a concept called tawdi, clarification or manifestation. When you walk barefoot, you're manifesting something true about your reality. You're manifesting your connection to creation. You're manifesting your dependence on God's creation for your well-being. You're manifesting humility before the earth. The Quran says in chapter 2, verse 34, and mention, O Muhammad, when we said to the angels, prostrate before Adam, and they prostrated except for Iblis. This verse speaks of prostration to Adam and by extension to humanity. But it also speaks of humanity's unique position. We're connected to the earth. We're made from earth. Our very name in Arabic insan comes from nisyan, which means forgetting. Humanity is the being that forgets its connection to creation. Walking barefoot is a way of remembering. It's a way of saying, I remember that I'm made from earth. I remember that I'm dependent on creation. I remember that I'm not separate from nature. Al-Ghazali emphasized this spiritual dimension. He taught that barefoot walking was a practice of izan, excellence in worship. When you walk barefoot with awareness of why you're doing it, you're not just exercising your feet. You're performing an act of spiritual consciousness. You're acknowledging God through your connection to God's creation. This is different from mindfulness meditation, though the effects can be similar. With barefoot walking, you're not trying to clear your mind. You're not trying to achieve a particular mental state. You're simply allowing your body to reconnect with something that's meant to be connected with the earth itself. And as your body heals through this reconnection, your spiritual awareness naturally deepens. You begin to feel God's presence not just in prayer or in Scripture, but in creation itself. You begin to experience what medieval Sufi poets called the manifestation of God in nature. You begin to know God through your senses, through your body, through direct contact with creation. This is profound. This connects physical healing with spiritual awakening. The Prophet's teaching encompasses both. It's a practice that heals your body and awakens your spirit simultaneously. If your faith is still alive here, if you follow me through the biophysics and the spiritual dimensions, what I'm about to share will show you why reclaiming this practice is urgent for your spiritual survival in this moment. We live in an age of increasing separation from nature. We are more disconnected from the earth than any generation in human history. We live in climate-controlled buildings. We wear insulated shoes. We spend most of our time on artificial surfaces. We interact with technology far more than with the natural world. And this separation is creating a spiritual crisis. Many modern people report feeling empty, disconnected, and meaningless, despite having material plenty. They practice formal spirituality, prayer, scripture reading, community gatherings, and yet they feel like something essential is missing. What's missing is direct contact with creation. What's missing is the grounding that comes from acknowledging your place in the natural world. What's missing is the humility that comes from recognizing that you're made from earth and dependent on earth. The Prophet's teaching invites you to reclaim this connection, not as a rejection of modern life or as a return to primitive existence, but as a deliberate practice of reconnection, a regular reminder that you're part of creation, not separate from it, that your well-being depends on honoring your connection to the earth. When you walk barefoot on the earth, you're not just healing your nervous system, you're healing a fundamental spiritual disconnection. You're remembering who you are and where you come from. You're grounding yourself, not just electrically, but spiritually. Medieval Islamic scholars recognized this integration of physical and spiritual healing. They saw barefoot walking as a complete practice, beneficial for health and spiritually transformative. They prescribed it not just for sick patients, but for anyone seeking spiritual development. Let me bring this to the practical level. What does this mean for your life starting today? First, recognize what you've been missing. The Earth's electromagnetic field is a healing force. Direct contact with it produces measurable benefits. You've been designed by God to interact with this field. Your nervous system needs it. Your body craves it. When you've been separated from it, you experience the consequences: dysregulation, anxiety, sleep problems, chronic inflammation. Second, make a commitment to barefoot walking. It doesn't have to be extensive. Start with once a week. Find a natural space, a park, a garden, even a natural outdoor area in your city. Remove your shoes. Let your bare feet touch soil, grass, or stone. Spend at least 15 minutes there. Just be present. Feel the earth beneath your feet. Let your body do what it's designed to do, ground itself. Third, do this with awareness. This isn't just exercise, this is a spiritual practice. As you walk, remember why you're doing it. Remember that you're made from earth. Remember that your well-being depends on this connection. Remember that the prophet taught this. Feel the gratitude for having access to the earth. Feel the recognition of your place in creation. Fourth, observe the effects. After a few weeks of regular barefoot walking, notice what changes. Does your sleep improve? Does your anxiety decrease? Does your pain lessen? Does your mood shift? Does your sense of well-being increase? Notice these effects not as coincidence, but as confirmation of a truth that the prophet knew. Moment of reflection. Commit to this practice right now. Choose a day this week when you'll walk barefoot on the earth. Choose a place. Commit to at least 15 minutes. Make this a spiritual practice. Make this a way of honoring the prophet's teaching and reconnecting with creation. In chapter 55, verse 10, the Quran says, "And the earth we spread it out and placed therein firmly set mountains, and we caused to grow therein every beautiful kind of plant." The earth isn't just a place to live, it's a source of beauty, of sustenance, of healing. It's a manifestation of God's creation and God's care for you. When you walk barefoot on this earth, you're acknowledging this gift. You're saying thank you. You're recognizing that creation itself is a source of healing and spiritual nourishment. You're participating in the wisdom that the prophet embodied. The revelation that changes everything is this: you're not separate from nature. You're not meant to be. Your body, your nervous system, your spirit, all of these are designed to be in constant contact with the earth. When you honor this connection, when you walk barefoot regularly, you're not just following a cultural practice or a health tip. You're aligning yourself with fundamental truth about how you're designed to live. Subscribe for more stories that reveal how ancient spiritual wisdom intersects with modern health science. Comment: have you experienced the healing power of direct earth contact? What changes have you noticed in your health or your spiritual awareness when you spend time barefoot in nature? Share your testimony about reconnecting with the earth. Remember this: the earth that sustains your body also heals it. The creation that you're part of wants you to be well. When you remove the barriers between yourself and the earth, when you allow direct contact between your body and the ground beneath your feet, you're receiving a gift that's been waiting for you. You're accessing healing that's available to everyone, always, for free. Start today. Take off your shoes. Feel the earth. Let your nervous system recalibrate. Let your body reconnect with what it's designed to connect with. And as you do, recognize that you're honoring a teaching that the prophet lived and taught, a teaching about the wholeness that comes from honoring your place in creation. Because when your feet touch the earth, when you feel that direct contact, something deep in you recognizes truth. Something remembers that you belong to the earth, and the earth belongs to you. And in that recognition, healing becomes possible.